If you have topics you would like to have us discuss on the Aging Well podcast, please click on the links in the episode description to send us a text or record your message or comments. We'd love to hear from you and how we can help you age well. If you benefit from the Aging Well podcast and would like to support the content financially, please click on the Support the Show link or support our affiliates and advertisers. Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Jeff Armstrong here with Corbin Bruton. In this and the episodes that follow, we will share candid discussions on aging and hear from the experts. We are here to inform and encourage as we experience, well, aging. Here we are kicking off Season 2 of the Aging Well podcast. As we begin a new year and a new season, Dr. Armstrong and Corbin Bruton discuss New Year's resolutions. In this first of a two-parter, we discuss our thoughts on resolutions and our top 5 things to resolve to do in 2023. All right, so Corbin, do you realize we're starting Season 2 of the podcast?
Wow, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and we're starting a new year, so this podcast will air as our first episode in 2023. So the years are progressing pretty rapidly here. I thought maybe today would be a good time to just talk about resolutions because everybody's probably in the thrust of their New Year's resolutions right now.
Yep.
What do you think of New Year's resolutions?
I think New Year's resolutions are a good thing. I think it's a time to self-reflect on how you were in the previous year and some changes that you need to make in order to be a better version of yourself. I think it's also it's good if you write it out in a goal set. By this time, I will hit this day. This is my New Year's resolution. But a lot of people, what they do is they tend to say, my New Year's resolution is to lose weight and get fit. And then mid-January, they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. It's tense because they don't have an actual goal set in plan.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of New Year's resolutions. I think for kind of the same reason that they tend to be very non-specific, or even if they're specific, they're very easily just forgotten.
Right.
There's not as much intention with them as there could be. And I think, we tend to focus on just improving ourselves at the start of the year. But what about day-to-day improvement? What about having a growth mindset? And I do like the idea of maybe using the start of the year as a period of self-reflection and of kind of goal setting in the sense of what do I need to change of myself to become better. I really tend to favor, one of my mantras is be your best today, be better tomorrow. So every day becomes a day for kind of resolutions. And so this idea of kind of growth, self-improvement on a constant basis. What do you think of that?
I think that's really poetic of you.
Poetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, poetic.
No, I think I think it should be. I mean, we get 24 hours in a day, and we're gonna give it our all. But even when we give it our all, there's gonna be a few mistakes here and there. And so what's cool about that is when you go to sleep and then you wake up, it's a whole new day. So you have literally an entire day to improve and be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday. And it could be small little goals. Maybe you have little projects at work or something that you're working on. And the day before, you only got like 42 projects done. Well, today's a new day. You're going to get 43 or 45 done. Something that small, it's at least a step in the right direction for improvement.
Yeah, I'm not sure about counting that many projects to get done. If you have 43 projects to get done in a day, you might want to be looking at maybe how can I delegate this a little bit more to make my life a little bit better? Because when you have that much stress and you're trying to add more to your life, something's got to give. I mean, we've talked often about opportunity costs, and if we're putting say that much effort into our work that we're adding more and more tasks on top of it, eventually other things are going to give and we're going to lose that opportunity to be working out, spending time with our family. So we got to, as we look at improving and growing, we got to realize that growth isn't more, it's better quality. And I think that should be one of the things that we are approaching as we look at New Year's resolutions. How can I become that better self in this coming year? What do I need to not do, as well as what do I need to do? Not just do more of the same old crap, but do better.
I think you're right in that fact that it's not do more, it is do better, because quality is always better than quantity. I think you're right though. I think why a lot of New Year's resolutions fail is because people are trying to do so much at one time, and it's also it can be a huge life change if you are taking on way too much all at once. Eventually you're going to hit that fatigue level, both mentally, physically, even emotionally, probably. And I think that might be why a lot of those New Year's resolutions fail, is people are trying to take on too much at one time.
And maybe we need to resolve to do less sometimes.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, I will do this for my New Year's resolution, I won't do this, or I'll do less of this. I grew up, my dad was a business consultant, so I knew a lot of the different catchphrases and things like that. And I always liked the phrase kaizen, which is a Japanese word for self-improvement. I use that a lot, that, we should be in this state of kaizen, of striving to be constantly improving, making changes in our lives to be better. And so, again, if we have that 24 hours, what are we going to remove from that so that we can fill it with the things that are more productive, more beneficial to us overall? So what would be some of your recommendations for people to resolve to do in 2023? Let's each come up with a list of 5 things that we would suggest others do to better themselves over the course of the year.
You go first.
Me go first. Okay, I'd say my first one is to make diet a noun.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, because we tend to think of diet. I'm on a diet. I'm dieting. Well, dieting. So what you're saying basically is you're trying to cut your calories. You're trying to be hypocaloric, and that's fine. And we know that that's the most important step in order to lose body fat, is to cut your calories. But I think diet has lost its definition. Diet is a noun. Diet is what we eat on a regular basis. We've talked about like the Mediterranean diet, for example. We could talk about the benefits and the pitfalls of the keto diet, the paleo diet, and the million other diets that are out there. Because if there's somebody to write a book about dieting, there's going to be a different diet. But diet should be what we are eating on a regular basis. And then we manipulate that in order to manipulate our body composition.
Well, I think what's also cool about that mindset is it doesn't make the word diet so intimidating. A lot of people, they hear, oh man, I got to go on a diet. And then they freak out. And then they think like, ah, man, I'm killing myself. I literally just took the word die and added a T at the end, and it's killing me. And this is awful. But I think you're right. I think changing it is, this is my diet, and having it be a noun is, this is what I eat. This is my nutrition. It's not food I'm getting. It's fuel. It's fuel. I'm fueling my body with that. And I think having that mindset, that's a pretty good way of looking at changing it from a verb to a noun.
Yeah. You stole my joke about diet being die with a T, but.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you stole my joke. So I was setting myself up for that.
Oh, sorry.
But I set you up for it, I guess. So that's fine. So what would be your first?
My first would probably be add more resistance training and strive for a goal. Because we've talked a lot about the benefits of resistance training here. And I would say, don't just add the weights. Add the weights with a goal that you're going to self-improve. I will be hitting a 200 plus bench by this day. Okay, you've set that goal. Now you're just going to slowly build into it. And now you have a goal. Now you can improve. And then once you do hit it, okay, what's the next one? So don't just say, I'm going to do resistance training. Resist with a goal.
Okay. And lift weights was actually my number 3. So I'll move that up to my number 2 so that we'll
Okay.
talk about it at kind of the same time. So yeah, I think, lift weights is definitely a goal. I didn't make it as specific in terms of goal setting, but that'll come up with later on my list is kind of why. But I think we definitely want to see people starting to shift their mindset to lifting weights, trying to promote muscle hypertrophy and not necessarily, getting big, bulky muscles, because, we know people don't want big, bulky muscles. And God forbid they'd actually grow a muscle as they lift or as they lift weights. They have this fear that you're going to just wake up one day and you're going to look like Ronnie Coleman. And it's like, you don't realize how many years it took Ronnie Coleman. In fact, it probably took him decades to get to that point. And so simply lifting weights for the health benefits that we can get from it and the improvements on our aging. So what would be your number 2?
My number 2 for people is to wake up before the sun. And it seems really silly, but just having a mindset of I'm going to be waking up early is, again, it's not a set in stone goal, but waking up before the sun wakes up and getting some task done. Maybe you're working out. Maybe you're checking your emails, whatever the case may be, wake up before the sun. I actually used to think that staying up late was the cool thing to do and you can get so much more done at nighttime, but that's not really the case. That's not that beneficial. I think getting adequate amount of sleep and having a set bedtime, as you have mentioned plenty of times in this podcast, is way more beneficial to any person. And that waking up early is actually it goes a long ways.
I discussed my epigenetics test with True Diagnostic co-founder Hannah Wendt in episode 162. Epigenetic testing measures baseline and changes in your pace of aging, giving you the power to steer your anti-aging or health and wellness journey in the right direction. I learned that I am aging well. Click on the affiliate link in the episode description, use the promo code AGEWELL, and receive a 12% discount on your epigenetics test and monitor your pace of aging. It's been one of my keys to aging well is waking up before the sun. I do that on both accounts. I wake up before the sun because he sleeps, he's a teenager, so he sleeps very late. It's very easy to get up before the sun, but also to get up before sunrise, before the early hours. I'm pretty much on a set schedule. I mean, my sleeping in is maybe to sleep in until about 5:30, which is generally still before the sun rises in most cases. So, but that's usually if I don't make my bedtime. If I don't get to bed by 9:30, I might feel a need to sleep in a little bit that next morning. But sleeping in is never past even 6 o'clock for me. I mean, if I sleep until 6, I'm just like, what am I doing? So, yes, sounds good. Get up before the sun. I did my number 3, so I'll go back to my number 2, which is do less cardio. And I know that for some people, probably, what? Do less cardio. But we've been talking about this, that, cardio has its health benefits, right? But it also has some detrimental effects in terms of maintaining our lean muscle mass. Really, in regards to losing fat, it's not as beneficial. And a lot of people, it's how do we approach cardio? We're just doing this, long hours of cardio to burn calories. Well, we tend to lose muscle mass with that. And over time, that's going to lead to us, losing some function. Whereas if we lift and lift intensely, we're actually going to have some cardiovascular benefit as well as the muscular benefit that's going to allow us to do more activity throughout the day. And so I would encourage people to shorten up their cardio, do an effective cardio bout, and it might only be 10, 15 minutes a day, but that's going to be enough to maintain your VO2 max, or in many cases, improve VO2 max, and allow us to use more of the day for other benefits and to use it to build strength and, improve our flexibility, improve our neuromotor skill related fitness as well as, just simply cardiovascular fitness.
I actually just watched a documentary and they talked about as far as cardio goes, you really only need maybe 2 days a week, maybe. And just like a combination of those 2 days should be about 45 minutes. So not like 45 minutes for the entire session, 45 minutes for those 2 days out of that week. In the rest of your week, you should be doing resistance training. And I was like, that's everything we talk about.
And it should be, definitely increase your physical activity.
Right.
And the ACSM guidelines are basically for physical activity. They're not talking about exercise. They're not talking about cardiovascular, cardiorespiratory specific endurance type of training. And I'm in the midst of watching a interview with Stan Efferding, and he's talking about, he tells his clients and for himself, he doesn't like 10-minute walking a day, and that's it. It's so intentional. And that's the limit of cardio. But when you're working out with the weights intensely, then you're going to still get some of that cardiovascular benefit.
Right.
All right. So what is your number 3?
My number 3, I would say either read a Bible verse or read anything for that matter. It can be a verse. It can be a couple pages. And whatever it is that you're reading, just reflect on it. Write it down if you have to. Have an accountability buddy and say, hey, man, I read this cool thing on insert whatever awesome topic, and this is my takeaway from it. And why do I think this is important? Well, I think it's important because a lot of the times we're in such a go, 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 go society now that when we read things, we don't actually read it. Prime example is whoever's listening, you probably have sent an email to a coworker and they just give it a thumbs up and you're like, what? I had like 4 questions in there. What do you mean? Thumbs up. It happens. People just either skim things or they don't read or they're not absorbing what the actual takeaway message is. So find something. You don't have to read an entire chapter. You can just read like 1 to 5 pages, or if you're going down a spiritual route, you can have 1 to 2 verses and then pick one thing that just really, really stands out to you and go that way. And if you are reading the Bible, I would suggest the Proverbs Challenge. It's super simple. There's literally 31 Proverbs, whatever day you're on. So if you're reading this and it's the new year and it's January 2nd, hypothetically speaking, you would be reading Proverbs 2 and you would just pick a verse and you would just write and self-reflect on that. What did that mean to you? What was that take home message? And I'm telling you, but just by doing something to that effect, your brain is going to expand so much and you're going to be taking in so much more information versus just reading something and just, oh, this sounds good.
Similar to this, and it doesn't involve reading, but one thing I came across years ago was there's Dr. Rob Gilbert. He's I forget what his exact degree was in, but he's an academic in kind of the more sport, fitness, physical education side. I think he's more like a sports psychologist kind of guy, but he has a phone number that you call, and he, for years, has provided a recorded inspirational message. And so you just call him and you'll get this answering machine that'll you'll hear his message. And I haven't done it enough, and maybe that's something I would resolve to do is maybe on a daily basis as I'm driving to work, just place that call and listen to that message because he's always had some really, really good messages. I always thought that was kind of a good thing to do. I do favor journaling in the morning. I don't get to read as much in the morning because it's just time schedule. So my morning journaling tends to be more reflective. But what I've always liked to do in the evening is kind of do, like you said, read at the end of the day, read something more inspirational and maybe jot down a quote from it or something like that, that as I'm going to sleep at my bedtime, I'm kind of putting into my head that message of positivity that, you tend to sleep on and reflect on as you're sleeping. But I do like that idea of, reading daily, no matter what it might be, but it should be something of inspiration. Whether, you're of the Judeo-Christian faith and you read the Proverbs, which I've done that before. Sometimes that gets a little bit redundant the more you do it. I mean, after you're doing it month after month after month, you need a break from it. You need other rhythms in there, but finding something of a positive nature to read and reflect on at the start of the day and at the end of the day can generally be very, very helpful. So I think a good point. So what number are we on here? We are on number 4.
Mm-hmm.
My number 4 that I listed was find and maintain a healthy body composition. And I want to be clear that when I say healthy body composition, I'm not saying everybody should be trying to get six-pack abs. In fact, I, in general, would discourage that as a goal because that's generally getting too lean and often for many people unsustainable. It's great for, you do a photo shoot with your six-pack abs and you get a couple shots of these, rippling muscles, and then you can post it on Instagram, and then you can go back to your normal dietary habits and wear, your shirt down over your stomach for the rest of the year until you cut again. But I think, what is a comfortable, healthy weight for yourself? And it might be actually even a little bit more than where you're at. You've just completed a diet and that may not be sustainable, but a few pounds more may be that weight that you can sustain much more healthfully for many, many years. But we shouldn't allow, as we age, this creeping of body fat. And because the norms that are presented by groups like the American College of Sports Medicine and other fitness groups say that, you're in a healthy range if your body composition is increased, a little less than the vast majority of the population. I feel like, if you're increasing, you're still increasing your risks, your health risks. And it was funny, I've been kind of had in my head much more that our percentage of Americans that are over fat or obese was somewhere about 2/3 of the population. And my son just the other day kind of looked up the numbers, and it's actually much closer to 3/4 of the population.
Wow.
And so those numbers are growing. And
as a country or as
a country, yeah. In the United States, we have 3/4 of the American population are over fat. And now some of that might be based on BMI. So, we might, if you really measured body composition, those numbers might go down a little bit. But the fact that only about 23% of the population is meeting the minimum physical activity guidelines tells me that the percentage that are more muscled and less fat, that gives them a higher BMI because of the extra muscle, is still relatively small. And so they're probably pretty accurate numbers to say that the vast majority of us need to lose a little bit of body fat for our health.
Yeah, I would agree on that one.
So that would be my number 4. What would be your number 4?
Number 4 is I'm going to double dip between a personal and a message for our listeners. So my personal one is I want to buy a house. So I will be getting a house. Mark my words, by 2023. It's going to happen. I'm declaring it. I'm making it happen. However, it took a lot of time to save up to put it like a down payment on a house. And so that would be my advice for our listeners is set money aside. A lot of people, they're always complaining, oh man, I'm broke. Oh man, I can't do this. I can't do that. Oh, my car broke down and I can't even afford to pay it. Well, if you take a small chunk of your paycheck before any bills come out or anything to that effect, and you just take that small chunk and you put it into a savings account and you just act as if it's a bill, because it kind of is a bill. It's a bill for your future self. You're paying your future self. You're setting your future self up for success. So just a small chunk of your paycheck, and then, eventually it's going to get easier, and that small chunk is going to roll into a larger chunk, and then it's going to roll into an even more heavier chunk. The more you make, the more you can set that money aside and just save and watch that money grow. And that would be one of my um, goals for everyone is to take a portion of your paycheck, shoot for 10% if you're able to do that. And if you're not, that's okay. Shoot for 6% and put that over into savings and don't touch it. And again, if you do it right at the beginning of your pay period, you're not even going to know, because the rest of your money, take care of your bills, and then whatever you have left over, that's your money to spend. But that other money that you're putting in savings, don't touch that. Just don't. Emergency.
I agree entirely with that. And I think that principle of opportunity cost figures into our finances as well as anything. That, you have so much that you can do with your paycheck, and some people, their paychecks are too small. But if you really, really look at how am I spending my money, even if you make a small amount of money, is there something that you can do differently in order to put some of that money aside? I see a lot of people, complain, students. I'm not picking on my students at all, but you see students that complain about student debt and having to borrow money for college, and you see the cars in the parking lot. You see their cup of Starbucks in front of them in class. You see them pulling out their latest iPhone. You can start looking at what are the things that you are spending money on that you really, really don't need, that if you sacrifice just a little bit, you can ultimately have more in the long run. And oftentimes too, we buy things on credit, and rather than saving for them. And this was years ago, but I saw some figures on, things that we kind of buy on credit, and, you end up paying interest rates on them for many people, and how much more you can buy if you simply saved for those items. And so it's that delayed gratification
Right.
that permits us to be able to ultimately have more. And, if you look at some of the wealthiest people, and we tend to fault the 1%, in our society because they have so much more than some of us. But many of them, when you see that their money has grown so much, like through COVID, there's all these people getting attacked by how many billions of dollars certain people have made. Well, if you have that money, it's really hard not to make money on it because it's in investments, and those investments get bigger. And I mean, nobody's just sitting with billions of dollars in their checking account. That money is wrapped up in properties, investments, and businesses, and those things grow very rapidly. For some of us, that growth is much smaller, and we need to be a bit more patient with it. But when we give it the opportunity to grow, it's going to grow. And it's not going to grow if we just simply keep spending at rates that we really can't afford to do. So you might have to sacrifice. It might not mean eating out. And yeah, some of your friends are doing that, and that's great. They're able to, but if we're not able to, we shouldn't be trying to be someone or something we're not.
So you're almost like sprinkling a little bit more wisdom on that goal as far as staying inside your budget, right? Pay your bills, make those your priority, include an extra bill, which is paying your future self. And then whatever you have, stay within that. So that's pretty cool too. And it seems so simple, but I don't think people in this day and age, I don't think they fully grasp it. I don't think they fully understand. Like you mentioned, the Starbucks thing, right? They got their Starbucks coffee. And how much is a Starbucks coffee now? It's like,
I know, like a tall black coffee I bought the other day was about $2.65 or something like that.
Yeah.
Long gone is being able to say the phrase that 50 cents will get you a cup of coffee. Because I don't know where you can get a 50-cent cup of coffee anywhere anymore. But yeah, I mean, and I'm not knocking Starbucks, because I like the crew at the Starbucks I go to. And I go there just to get some work done while I'm waiting to maybe go to practice or something at the high school, or, if I have to pick up the kids. But, you can spend a lot of money there. And, people aren't just buying black coffee. They're buying these lattes and things like that. I think like a grande latte there is almost $6. And people buy those 1-2 times a day.
right.
And it's not just Starbucks. It's every kind of coffee place. We're in the Northwest. You can't turn around without bumping into a coffee shop. So, People are spending a lot of money on that crap. Not only are they excess calories that aren't really healthy for them. I mean, the black coffee itself has got a lot of health benefits. We've talked some about that over the course of last year's episodes. But when you get into the lattes and what I call the crappuccinos, the calories start to really ramp up in those. And so, okay, maybe you have your coffee habit, and you're going with friends to Starbucks to hang out and just to visit. Instead of getting that 5.95 Crappuccino, maybe you just get the three nine, whatever, I think it's like 365 or something like that for a venti coffee. But it's definitely like a couple dollars less. Even if you're saving $1 a day, that's $30 a month, roughly, and $365 a year. That adds up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one thing that you're saving a little bit of money on, and what else can you cut that, just begins to add up. And then every dollar that you just put into savings is going to grow.
Totally. I mean, it seems so simple, and yet I don't know why, like myself included, during my 20s, I had such a hard time with money, and luckily when I graduated college, I do know I was really struggling, and I was doing my best, and I eventually moved in with one of my old roommates, and he was actually a banker. He's like a financial advisor, and it completely changed just little tiny tweaks within my own personal life, and money didn't really become an issue, and it's super grateful for that. So
There you go. So let's see what is next. For me, we're up to number 5, right? So
Mhm.
number 5 is plan for exercise or to periodize. I think a lot of people, and especially when we're making these New Year's resolutions, I'm going to exercise 5 days a week. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And that's great. They're getting to the gym, but then they get there and they just kind of look around. Well, what machines are open? What am I going to do? And you just kind of go through the motions of going to the gym, and you don't have a plan for progression that is going to get you to those goals. And so oftentimes it's very easy to get bored with the exercise because you don't have that intention with what you're doing. And I would recommend for anybody to plan out, cycles of training. What am I going to do for the next 3 weeks? Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm lifting. I'm going to do these exercises, this intensity, this many sets. The following week, I'm going to increase either the weight or the number of repetitions or the number of sets. How am I progressing? If I'm going to have a deload in there, keep in mind when vacations are coming up. If you are someone who travels a lot for business and you know what your schedule is for the month, plan out when I'm going to the gym so that there's no excuse. I have to get to the gym today because if I don't, I got this travel coming up and I'm going to miss this, or I have, my child has a recital at school and I'm going to have to miss this workout. So how am I going to make up for that? And the more we plan for our exercise, and especially the more we periodize. Now, planning, you don't have to get into full on periodization where you start talking about block and linear and undulating and all that, if you're just a novice lifter. But have some progression in mind. These are my goals. This is how I'm going to get to that point. You talked about increasing your bench press. Well, okay, I have a deadline when I want to increase that. I'm here. How am I going to connect those two dots? What am I going to do in between there to get to that? And I think a lot of people neglect to really plan their exercise. And I know there are those in the fitness industry that believe in muscle confusion and all this other bullshit that is supposed to help you progress. But if you're not planning, and it might seem mundane to do the same exercises day after day, week after week, but you're going to be able to progress because you get better at them and you're adding to it. You're consciously adding a little bit every time. And over a span of time, you're going to see vast improvements. So that would be my number 5. And I could probably make a whole lot, much longer list of things that I would recommend for people to resolve, because as probably the listener is figuring out, I took much more of the fitness only approach to the resolutions, and you've kind of taken this broader well-centered approach to it with the finances and with the reading and the spiritual guidance from what you can get from that reading and all those types of things.
Yeah.
So with that said, what's your number 5?
With that said, my number 5 is actually going to be volunteer. Volunteer somewhere. Find time to take on a project and volunteer your time, your services, and give that effort to someone else or something else, and just you're going to feel a lot better. And sometimes you're going to volunteer and you're going to wake up on that day and you're going to be like, why did I do that? Like, this is my one day to sleep in. But you know what? You're going to show up, and whatever function that you're volunteering for, people are going to be really, really grateful that you're actually making that effort and that you're there. And you're going to see it on their face, and you're going to be like, wow, I can't believe just me being here, like, means so much. A couple places where, if you guys are wanting to volunteer, you can go to any of your local either independent livings or assisted livings. They're always looking for volunteers to help out in the activities program. It could be something as, hey, I just want to call bingo. That's all I want to do. And I'll be a part of that. Or, maybe I'll do a book reading, or maybe I'll come in and I'll show them how to paint. If you have the luxury of not working during the normal 8 to 5 hours, and you're able to get a background check and go and volunteer your time at a school. I know a lot of those schools are looking for help. I think teachers are definitely burnt out at this point in time. There's a lot that's going on, especially with COVID. Just they're trying to play catch up. I would also, one of the things that my fiance and I did, we actually, we did a volunteer and we hosted a park cleanup, and it was really cool. There was one of the local parks and it was getting a little out of control, and we reached out to, and it wasn't just her and I by any means. It was kind of everyone that I work with. One of the other office leads, they ended up reaching out to the Parks and Rec department and just said, hey, do you need us to help clean this park up? And we reached out, and they were like, yes, we need help. And a whole group of people went, and we my fiance and I, we brought the food and we were grilling for everyone. And so we cleaned up this park, made it look a lot nicer, and then everyone got a free meal out of it. And it just, I don't know, it just felt right. Just helping your neighbor out, helping someone, anyone, just volunteering that time and that effort. You feel good. And you're literally watching something that you just volunteer for. You're watching that roll out as an accomplishment. Like, if you volunteer to clean up a park, well, by the end of the day, that park's getting clean. You're going to see the results right then and there. And it affects people. If you volunteer at an assisted living, and you're calling bingo, to you, you're just B4, number B4. But when you see an elderly lady just scream bingo and she's super excited, like, you're a part of that. And it's a pretty cool thing.
Sounds cool. Now, and volunteering doesn't have to be some big thing either. It may just be, small little things that we do for people.
Right.
Just a little small acts of kindness. So opening a door for somebody. Just being conscientious about that. You're mowing your lawn, and there is, a neighbor who maybe works a lot, or it's a widow, and just, I got the mower going, I can just mow into their lawn. I did this when I lived in Michigan. Their neighbor across the street, her husband passed away, and she was quite capable of mowing her own lawn, but I had a big lawn. I liked mowing, and especially the fact that I was a teacher, and in the summertime I didn't have to work, so I had time. So I would mow her grass. Of course, I was pretty anal with how I mowed the grass back in Michigan, where I had to have perfect lines, lining up, and I had a little roller on the back of my mower that helped kind of press the lines down because I wanted those color differences, the striping in the yard. And I would match up my striping with her yard. And so neighbors would just laugh about it. But, it's like, didn't take me much time to just go across the street and mow her lawn, or, if you're raking leaves, I was walking the dogs the other day and they just kind of noticed these yards where there's a yard with absolutely like no leaves. And then there's like a line where suddenly the leaves just build up. And it's like, really, we can't just go that extra little few feet and rake up some leaves from our neighbor's yard to just
Right.
kind of help them out because, around here it's raining all the time. And, sometimes you miss that window to be able to get your leaves done and then they sit for a while. So just little things that we can do for other people is volunteering. So we don't have to feel like, oh, but geez, I'm working so much. I have all my kids' sports and I have all these other activities and everything else. I don't have time to volunteer. Well, look for the small things that you can do and then eventually kind of build those into bigger things. It might just be, oh, they're doing a can drive at the school. Well, I can go to the store and pick up a few extra cans of something and drop them off. Boom, you're done. So, yeah, that's some really good ideas, and certainly we could probably build on that even further. So let's continue with this in a part 2. Until then, age well. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast, and until next time, keep aging well.